What happens when the most important player in the sport finally decides she has had enough? That question is now haunting every corner of women's basketball. Caitlyn Clark's walkout didn't just signal frustration, it signaled transformation. It was the moment where the brightest star in the game quietly but firmly reclaimed control of her own narrative. And the shockwaves from that choice didn't just travel through Team USA's camp or the WNBA's offices. They hit the entire sports world like a jolt of electricity. Suddenly, every fan, every analyst, every veteran, and every executive was forced to confront a reality they had tried to avoid. The era they thought they could slow down or manage was already here, and its leader had decided she would no longer wait for permission to step into her power. The tension surrounding the league's treatment of Clark had been building for far too long. Each shove that went uncalled, each silent bruise ignored, and each snub dressed up as a strategic decision slowly chipped away at the league's credibility. Fans watched her get pushed to the ground, elbowed off screens, hacked on drives, and hit before the ball even arrived, only for officials to shrug it off as competitive play. But it wasn't competitive. It was targeted, it was excessive, and it was allowed to continue because the league seemed too afraid to confront the uncomfortable truth that their veterans weren't prepared for the storm Clark brought with her. That refusal to intervene created a culture where hostility was normalized, where Clark became a lightning rod for resentment instead of a symbol of growth. And no one in leadership seemed willing to protect her. That climate traveled with her into Team USA, an environment that should have been the safest, most supportive, most unifying group in the sport. Instead, it became the stage where everything finally cracked. Every superstar in history can trace their defining moment to a single day when they chose pride over politics, truth over silence. Clark's moment came the instant she walked off that practice floor. Witnesses described the gym as heavy, almost frozen. The players who had whispered behind the scenes fell quiet, unsure whether the line they'd been inching toward for months had finally been crossed. Coaches felt the weight of the decision they had just made. Staff members wondered how they would explain to the world why the player responsible for skyrocketing attention was being pushed to the side. Everyone in that space understood something irreversible had just happened. And she didn't have to shout or make a scene. She didn't have to storm off or call out names. The power of the moment came from its calmness. From the way she simply chose not to participate in her own diminishing. Women's basketball had always prided itself on unity, but the cracks were now visible to anyone willing to look. The divide between the veterans guarding their legacy and the young phenom carrying the league's future had become impossible to ignore. And by stepping away, Clark forced the entire system to confront it. What followed was a scrambling attempt to rewrite the moment, to soften it, to pretend nothing deeper was happening. But the public wasn't buying it. Fans understood the history. They saw the disrespect. They saw the physicality. They saw the media narratives that downplayed her greatness. And they saw the resentment boiling beneath the surface. Clark stepping away didn't look like immaturity. It looked like survival. It looked like someone who had given the sport more than the sport was willing to give back. And it looked like the natural progression of someone who realized her value. The numbers made her importance undeniable. Television ratings were setting modern records. Merchandise sales were exploding. Arenas that once struggled to fill the lower bowl were now selling out the upper levels weeks in advance. The league was suddenly trending globally in a way it hadn't seen in decades. It wasn't a coincidence that these milestones aligned perfectly with Clark's arrival. She had sparked the kind of renaissance most leagues dream about but rarely achieve. And now the same system benefiting from her influence was dismissing her behind closed doors. Her decision to pull back from Team USA wasn't a tantrum or an overreaction. It was a calculated acknowledgement that she didn't need validation from a hierarchy designed to keep her at arm's length. It was a refusal to continue participating in a structure that wanted the benefits of her stardom without offering her the respect of inclusion. She didn't demand apologies. She didn't ask for reassurances. She didn't plead for minutes. She simply left, and in doing so, she took the future with her. The veterans who once controlled the narrative suddenly found themselves in a place they had never been before, chasing relevance. The league that had counted on their names for so long now had to confront the fact that the world was tuning in for someone else. And Team USA, once the untouchable standard of global dominance, now faced the reality that their strongest source of international excitement might no longer be willing to represent them. What was once unthinkable had become entirely plausible. The Olympics without the most popular player in the sport. The national team without the player responsible for its highest surge in global visibility. And all because they couldn't let go of outdated hierarchies long enough to recognize that the torch had already been passed whether they approved of it or not. The deeper truth is this: Caitlyn Clark didn't step away from Team USA, Team USA stepped away from her. They built walls where they should have built bridges. They hardened positions where they should have embraced evolution. And now they are facing the cost of those choices. Clark's walkout wasn't the end of a chapter. It was the beginning of a new one where she finally chooses her voice, her value, her boundaries, and her future. So now the world watches and waits. Will the national team course correct before the next Olympic cycle? Will the league finally acknowledge the hostility she faces? Will veterans adapt to the new era or continue resisting until they're forced out by time? More importantly, will Caitlyn Clark ever return to a system that refused to protect her when she needed it most? That is the question hanging over women's basketball like a shadow, and the answer may define the sport for the next decade. Before you go, tell me what you think. Has Caitlyn Clark reached the point where stepping away from Team USA was the only option she had left? Do you believe the old guard is holding the sport back? And do you think the league will finally protect its most valuable star? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, hit like if you're invested in this unfolding story, and don't forget to subscribe for more dramatic deep dive documentaries just like this one.